We're going to do a little bit different, a couple little different things. I have some videos that I want to show, just some opportunities for us to think through the way that others have portrayed some of the events of Holy Week. Some of them good, some of them not good. Some of them I'm guessing you'll have seen. There's just a couple of videos for tonight. I'll have a couple more for next week. And also a couple of pieces of art. Just to think about, as others have portrayed these events, what are they trying to focus on? And one of the things that I want to remind you, we're going to be looking at this from the perspective of the Gospels, of course. I want to remind you that the Gospels, this is a mistake that a lot of us make. The Gospels are not biographies of Jesus, right? They are not biographies of Jesus. They are theological books about Jesus. And there's a difference. When you're writing a biography, your goal, for example, might be to be chronological, right? You want to tell the events from the time you were born until the time you die. And that's a chronological telling. The Gospels aren't always chronological, and sometimes that creates problems for people. So as we go through the events, we're going to look at, for example, we'll look at 4 different renderings of certain parts of Holy Week, and you're going to notice that the details are different. So one of the questions that I'm going to be challenging you with is, are the details that are different exclusive? In other words, if I say, I'll just try to use something that is absolutely absurd. All right, if I tell you that I am a Red Sox fan, that's not the absurd part. And then in the next breath I say that I'm a Yankees fan, that's the absurd part. I've contradicted myself. Those two things are mutually exclusive. One cannot root for the Red Sox and the Yankees. It is simply not possible, right? One cannot root for the Yankees and be a Christian either. But that's not I'm trying to think of who my Yankees fans are. I don't see a lot of my Yankee friends here. But you get what I'm saying, right? The details are not, here's spoiler alert. You'll find that the details are different, but they are not mutually exclusive, right? Some of them are hard. They're harder to explain than others, but nevertheless, we'll get through them, right? And the reason why that's important to note that is because that's a challenge that people will give to our faith quite frequently. The Bible contradicts itself. It contradicts itself all over the place. It really doesn't. All right, it really doesn't. There are places that are harder to explain than others. Some of them do require a little bit of theological gymnastics, but we'll find out and we'll see as we look through them that they're not mutually exclusive. As we go along, I'm also going to say this. You are welcome to interrupt me. I know that I talk. I'm a talker, right? So interrupt me. If you have a question, something that we're going through and you say, what about this, what about that? I don't know, I'll look it up. I'll figure it out for you next time, right? But feel free. Right? This is not, well, maybe I shouldn't say that because I want you to pay attention. Okay, there's no test at the end of this. That's what I was going to say. There's no test at the end of it, okay? All right. So as we journey with Jesus through Holy Week, obviously we're going to start at the very beginning of Holy Week, which is Palm Sunday. Good. All right. There's going to be audience participation in this too, so I was just testing you. Also, I encourage you, if you didn't this time, bring your Bible next week. It's okay if you have a digital version, but paper is also good. What event immediately precedes Palm Sunday? The raising of Lazarus, all right? If you've been in the church most of your life, you notice that repetition. The Sunday before Ash Wednesday is always the Transfiguration. Then the Sunday before Palm Sunday is always the raising of Lazarus. The raising of Lazarus is a critically important event because it's really what shines the light on what Jesus is doing. And as we see Jesus in charge of all of the events, as we see Jesus in charge of everything that is happening with his passion, it's also true of the raising of Lazarus. So that in the Gospel of John is really the thing that gets people nervous, especially the leaders, about who Jesus is. That's the thing that really stirs up the crowd. True or false? That's the first person Jesus has raised from the dead. False. Name another one. Jairus' daughter. All right, Jairus' daughter is raised from the dead. True or false? That's the only other person he raised from the dead. False. Who's the other person? The widow of Nain. Remember, he goes into the city, he sees this, the only son of a mother who is a widow being carried out on a bier. He stops the bier, he has compassion, and he raises the son. Right? So this isn't the first time he's raised someone from the dead. But this is one that is really kind of drawn the attention of everybody, because the others, while the one with the widow of Nain, to be sure, was public, but it was in a much less prominent place and a much less prominent time. Raising of Jairus' daughter.
In the Bible.
Yes, it's in the Bible.
Where is that?
In the Gospel of Luke. Is it Luke 7, Luke 9, Luke 7?
Okay.
Luke 7. Yep. Raising of the son of the widow of Nain is Luke 7. Also mirrored, by the way, by Elijah and the raising of the widow of Zarephath's son. There are a lot of similarities between those two stories. That matters a lot. So as he raises Lazarus from the dead, this is now done in a very public way. Right? There are lots of people there to witness, and the word spreads into Jerusalem. So that's important. It's important to see that as the backdrop for what's happening. Right? Jesus is already prominent. He's already public. And now he's going to be forced into the action. And when I say forced, don't misunderstand. He is the one who has begun the action, promulgated the action, so that he is the one who is going forward with it. All right? So let's start with Sunday. I'm going to start with a video. This is from the Jesus Project. Some of you likely have seen this before. We're going to watch about a 5-minute clip of it. I'm going to ask you when we're done, I'm going to ask you what things you know already, just in watching the video. What are the things that you go, I don't know if that's really the way it happened. All right? And what are the things that you think the person who made this video, what are they trying to tell us about Palm Sunday or emphasize about Palm Sunday? All right? All right, let's go. There we go. If you have Matthew open, the text is going to be from Matthew if you want to follow along.
Now when they drew near to Jerusalem and came to Bethphage, to the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them at once." This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, saying, "Say to the daughter of Zion, Behold, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden." The disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. Most of the crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. And the crowds that went before him and that followed him were shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up, saying, "Who is this?" And the crowds said, "This is the prophet Jesus, from Nazareth of Galilee." And Jesus entered the temple. He drove out all who sold and bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. He said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer. But you make it a den of robbers." And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying out in the temple, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they were indignant. And they said to him, "Do you hear what these are saying?" And Jesus said to them, "Yes. Have you never read, out of the mouth of infants and nursing babies, you have prepared In the morning, as he was returning to the city, he became hungry. And seeing a fig tree by the wayside, he went to it and found nothing on it but only leaves. And he said to it, "May no fruit ever come from you again." And the fig tree withered at once. When the disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, "How did the fig tree wither at once?" And Jesus answered them, "Truly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only do what has been done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, 'Be taken up and thrown into the sea,' it will happen." And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive if you have faith.
All right. What were some of the things that you noticed that the person who is putting this on, who's put this together, what are they trying to emphasize?
Well, one thing I noticed is when they first went in, there was a cross there that someone had put together. It's like, wow.
There were actually, I saw at least 3 crosses.
Yeah.
So why would somebody, again, if you're putting this together, if you're a producer, why would you do that?
I want to emphasize where we're going.
Right, I mean, just to show foreshadowing, right, where it's going. We know the whole story, and so it's kind of doing little things, dropping in little things to maybe emphasize that. What else? What'd you notice, what'd you think was good about it? Yeah.
This isn't to really answer your question, but I found it troubling, the extreme nature of anger that Jesus portrayed both at the entering the tabernacle, whatever, and then the fig tree and the look he was giving his disciples.
Yeah.
It really was kind of almost off-putting, it was so extreme.
Right, so especially in the temple,
Yeah.
the picture is definitely of anger, like he's unhinged, right? He's definitely like, now I don't think you can do what he did without showing anger, but it's definitely like almost enraged, right? Jesus is a head taller than every one of the disciples. Did you notice that? Why do you do that? What? Make him stand out? More authoritative, right? Something like that. What else? Good or bad? Yes, that's no Jonathan Rubin. Yes.
I thought he was awfully cheerful coming in on the.
At the beginning, awfully cheerful. Why? Why did you say that?
Well, I did.
Or what should his attitude be?
Well, he knew what was coming, so I thought he was a little more solid. But he was joyful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I thought the same thing. And then you'll notice we're gonna talk about this. While this is all happening on Palm Sunday, what do the other gospel writers tell us he's doing? He's weeping. Right? So again, he's going to go through some emotions pretty quickly here. Right? I mean, from this like lighthearted, jovial to super emotional where he's weeping to being angry and almost enraged to then like bouncing back and now I'm hungry. Right? I think it's interesting. What's that? It sure can bring out it sure can emphasize humanity. Yeah, absolutely. And then one other thing I think in that that's interesting. It never says that anybody. First of all, it never says anybody touched him, right? And there are people. Do you notice that they kept kissing him? And that's why I was actually mouthing the kid. I was trying to remember the psalm. I was thinking it was Psalm 8. It's Psalm 2. Kiss the Son lest he be angry. And I wondered if it was hearkening back to that. If that was what the editor's intent was to try to bring back the sense of the Old Testament. Kiss the Son lest he be angry, which is that indication the king's son can put you to death. And so do whatever it takes to get on the good side of the king's son. And so it's some kind of an indication there of his kingship and of that sense of realizing he comes in, there is some power that's involved in it, etc. One of the things that this also does, because it's trying to stay consistent with the text of Matthew, is it tries to put all these events right together, because that's what Matthew does, right? So we heard that reading from Matthew, and we heard kind of what happens. This is a quick, I know it's a terrible, it's all pixelated, but I think it's one of the best that I found of just what the path is of Palm Sunday. So Bethany and Bethany, all right, are both on the Mount of Olives, but they're on the east side of the Mount of Olives. Then on the west side of the Mount of Olives, or the Jerusalem side, is the Garden of Gethsemane. This is all part of the same hill. It's all part of the same Mount of Olives region. If you go farther out Bethany, if you go out actually not that many more miles, you'll get to Jericho. Right? And then if you keep going in the same direction, you're going to get to the Jordan River. And when you get to that part of the Jordan River, you're actually going to get to the place where traditionally the Exodus happens, where they cross the Jordan River, they come into the Promised Land, across the Jordan River there, where the water is parted. It's all actually kind of in a line, and it's not very far. So those of you that have been to the Holy Land, one of the things that shocks, I think, everyone, and shocked all of our group when we went, is just how condensed everything is. Maybe you didn't think about it in terms of the geography of the place, but the state of Israel is about the size of Indiana. It's not that big, all right? So when Jesus is in Nazareth, he's in South Bend, right? When he's in Jerusalem, he's in Indy. When they're out in the Negev, when they're out in the wilderness wandering area in the south, they're in down south by Louisville, right? It's not that big of a place. And so all of this stuff is happening in a real condensed area. And the same is true with this. So he gets up, this is about 2 miles to Bethany, right? So he starts that walk, and when he gets somewhere in this region here, that's when he sends the 2 disciples. He tells them, go on to the village ahead, and there you will find this donkey, there you will find this colt. Matthew has some interesting details. So if you have it open, there's some interesting details that are given right there about the donkey and the colt. Look at the text. Look right for him and turn back to my Matthew version. I want you to notice, Jesus sends him ahead. He says, immediately you'll find a colt, you'll find a donkey tied. This is verse 2 of chapter 21. Immediately you'll find a donkey tied and a colt with her. How many animals? 2. Untie them and bring them to me. How many animals?
2.
2. Them. Okay? If anyone says anything to you, say to them, the Lord needs them, and he will send them at once. This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, right? That's from Zechariah 9. You will find this happening. The disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. Then look at verse 7. They brought the donkey and the colt and put on what? Put on them. How many animals? 2. All right? Put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. What? How does one sit on 2 animals at the same time?
Them coats.
Right. What?
Them coats.
The coats.
Them coats, not them donkeys.
Oh, that's, yeah. Sure. I mean, I think you said them colts. I said the coats. I was thinking like they made a bridge between the 2 of them, right? It's really interesting, and it's not clear why Matthew gives us the picture that there are 2. There's the mother and the baby, right? There's the mother and the baby. But what Matthew does that's even more puzzling is he says he sat on them, as if he was riding both animals. Now, a lot of people will say this is a very simple explanation, but if you're riding on the baby and the baby hasn't yet been weaned from the mother, it's both of them, right? That's the explanation of that. But it's a weird phrase. It's a weird way that he does it, and he repeats it. It's not like he just says them one time. He says them multiple times in those sentences. And so you get the indication that both animals are making this trek. In the pictures in the movie, how many? 1. You will only ever see 1. I've not seen a single piece of art that has a picture of a donkey and a colt as Jesus is riding in. Right? It doesn't fit within the screen, the shot. Right? And the artist who's painting them, it's hard enough to paint 1 animal, let alone 2. So what's interesting?
Just the colt. There's no way you're going to ride a colt if the mom's not around.
Maybe so. Yeah, because no one has ever sat on the colt. Right? I'm not a farm person. I'm not an ag person. Some of you probably have sat on an unbroken animal. I don't think it would go very well. Right? yeah. All right. You might sit on it, but not for long. I like that. Yeah. So now, why the donkey? Why the donkey? It's
Humility.
not majestic. So the fulfillment of the prophecy from Zechariah, say to the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden. Donkeys play an interesting role in the history of Israel. In particular, one of the events that is noteworthy is the account of Balaam and the talking donkey. You remember that? It's a little bit more obscure, but it is an important event. The king Balak of the Midianites has asked Balaam to come and to bless the nation, to bless Israel's enemies. And as he's been asked to come and bless Israel's enemies, he calls on this Balaam and he says, look, I'll pay you to curse Israel and bless us. And Balaam is not really a good guy in the scriptures, and he's like, yeah, maybe, let's see what happens. God tells him, don't do it. He's like, I'm sorry, I can't. The Lord has told me not to. So he goes back to the king. Balak says, I'll give you anything, right? I will give you up to half the kingdom. I'll give you anything. What do you want? Just curse them and bless us. He's like, well, let me inquire of the Lord. Like, it's always interesting in the story when you read it. This guy seems pretty unscrupulous, and all of a sudden it seems like he grows morality, right? Like, now all of a sudden he's like, I'm not sure if I should do this. So he says, no, he won't. Then he gets up and he gets on his animal, which is a donkey, and he decides to go that. Let's just see what happens if I go toward them. Let's see what God does. And do you remember what happens? It's a particular place in the road where it's very narrow, and the donkey won't go forward. The donkey won't continue walking. You find this in the book of Numbers. The donkey won't continue walking. And then the donkey 3 times, he gets and beats the animal. It's very clear. He's beating the animal. And after the 3rd time, do you remember what happens? The donkey starts to talk. All right? Like, this is like the famous Mr. Ed. Right? And the donkey says to him, I've never disobeyed you. Why are you beating me? And he tells him, if I hadn't turned aside, you would have been killed. And then God takes the veil off the event, and he gets to see, standing in front of him, an angel with a sword, right? Who is there to kill him, because he's going to curse Israel and bless their enemies, which is what he's specifically been told not to do, right? And so in this account, the donkey is talking. Now, I really hesitate to ask this. Have any of you ever had a conversation with livestock or any type of animal? If you have, just keep it to yourselves, right? But we talk for our dog all the time, but our dog doesn't actually talk back. It's a weird event, but it's one that is known among the people of Israel. It's important enough, again, that Moses has written about it in Numbers 22. It's important enough that the people know about it. The account of the donkey is somewhat absurd, right? That's the point of it, that this donkey would speak. And the donkey has always kind of been that animal, that symbol of an animal that's it's stubborn, it's useful, but it's stubborn, and it's always somewhat kind of an outcast animal, right? So the fact that God is using that. If we weren't being recorded, I would tell you that one of my friends had on his wall at the seminary. This is slightly off color, but I want you to think in terms of Old English. So he had on his wall, if God can speak through Balaam's ass, he can surely speak through me. Not a bad motto, right? And that's the reality. That's what the donkey has always been, that type of animal, right? And so now he has a good bumper sticker, right? So I want you to think again, I want to think in terms of the way that people have portrayed this. Some of you know the apologist, author, political commentator G.K. Chesterton. G.K. Chesterton lived around 1900 on either side of that in England. Notorious for, he was a devout Anglican, then became Roman Catholic at the end of his life, but always a devout Christian. Interesting, as they said, he never met anything he couldn't write about. So he's a very, very prolific writer. He died at 62, died very young of a heart attack. But this is a poem that he wrote that I think is really an interesting take on this. When fishes flew in forests walk and figs grew upon thorn, some moment when the moon was blood, then surely I was born. When monstrous head and sickening cry and ears like errant wings, the devil's walking parody on all four-footed things. The tattered outlaw of the earth, of ancient crooked will, starve, scourge, deride me, I'm dumb, I keep my secret still. The tattered outlaw of the earth, of ancient crooked will, this is the repeated stanza, sorry. Starve, scourge, deride me, I'm dumb, I keep my secret still. Fools, for I also had my hour, one far fierce hour and sweet. There was a shout about my ears and palms before my feet. So what's he saying?
He didn't live much of a life, but he had one sweet hour,
Mm-hmm.
and the hour was worth everything else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, there was a reason for his unsweet life, because he was constantly being attacked by Satan.
Yeah, and you could even say the reason for the unsweet life, if he had been a different animal, he would not have been in this situation. Right? But because he is this animal, this dumb one, this outlaw of the earth, he had this moment. Right? I love when G.K. Chesterton does this, C.S. Lewis does this as well, Frederick Buechner is another author that I really like. They take the little things and they tell the story through the eyes of those little things. And that's what Chesterton does here, is he takes the opportunity to think about this moment from the eye of the donkey, of everything in his life matters less than this one particular hour when there's a shout about my ears and palms before my feet, right, when he's carrying the master.
And sometimes we get to know that, and sometimes we don't.
So speaking specifically of the metaphor of all of it, right? Sometimes we get to know that, and sometimes we don't.
Would it be too far-fetched to think when you think, okay, you got the colt and the donkey, and Jesus representing the bridge between the old and the new, and the new coming in with the colt.
You could certainly do something like that. One of my professors, he used to call that Bell's Rule 46, and it was always a different number, by the way. So like Bell's Rule 52, Bell's Rule 8, but it's always the same rule, which is it makes a really good theological journal article, but it's probably wrong. But and you think about that, you can absolutely make that case, right? He's bridging from the old to the new, absolutely. Matthew doesn't give us enough details to be certain, right? To say, yes, we know that. And one of the things I'm going to say repeatedly when we're together is, what does the text say, right? Because we like to bring in a lot of other stuff. And what does the text say? You can't lose sight of what the text says. All right, so let's look a little bit more at the other accounts. So look at Mark chapter 11. Right, Mark chapter 11. I'll ask someone to read that, please. Yep, go ahead. We'll give everyone 1 second to turn there. Mark 11, 1 to 11.
1 to 11?
Yeah.
As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethpage and Bethany at the Mountain of Olives, Jesus sent 2 of his disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and just as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, 'Why are you doing this?' tell him, 'The Lord needs it and will send it back shortly.'" They went and found a colt outside in the street, tied at the doorway. As they untied it, some people standing there asked, "What are you doing untying this colt?" They answered as Jesus had told them to, and the people let them go. When they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks over it, he sat on it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches they had cut in the fields. Those who went ahead and those who followed shouted, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest." Jesus entered Jerusalem and went to the temple. He looked around at everything, but since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12.
What are, as you, again, second account we've been through, what do you notice is different between the two? One animal. I made a big deal out of that. Only one animal. What else?
He didn't do his thing in the temple.
He didn't do his thing in the temple yet, right? So in Matthew, he comes in, goes right about that business, right? In Mark, he looks around, and he's like, "I'll be back." Right? This is going to take a minute, right? What else?
Did Matthew give the detail that the colt had never been ridden?
That is unique here, right? This is unique. The colt has never been ridden. So in the Old Testament, usually it's cows, but an animal that has not been broken, has not been yoked or saddled, is usually the one that's set apart for religious purposes. So when they're told to sacrifice, there's a couple times you're told to sacrifice a red heifer, it's always an unbroken one that has not had a yoke on it yet, right? So the fact that it's unridden upon is a detail here in Mark. There's another really weird detail that's given. Mark is the master of this. He gives weird details. The Lord has need. They went away, verse 4, found a colt tied at a door outside in the street. What? Right? Why that detail? And yes, again, I'm going to say, Chuck, we could probably write some journal articles about this. This is one of my favorite phrases. God is in the details. Right? If you were writing this story and you were just making it up as you went along, you'd probably come up with something real flowery and flowy. Instead, he's like, they're telling the story and he's writing it down. They're like, yeah, it was tied by the door, right there in the street, right? And why would they give a detail like that? Well, think about it as they're telling it. Remember, this is all done orally. It's all storytelling. And so as they're telling him the story, he is saying to them, he's writing this down, right? And they're saying to Peter, we say Peter dictated to Mark, right? Mark is writing Peter's account of the events. And so he says to Peter, hey, you went there, how did you know it was that animal? How did you know that was the one you're supposed to take? He's like, I don't know, it was just tied up right there by a door by the street. Right, that we tell details like that when we give story, and the details don't necessarily matter. Right, your English teacher at some point, probably around 9th grade, when you were writing stories for class, told you cut out all the details that don't matter. Right, but those are the things that make you, oh, you were there. So, for example, you think of a specific event in your life, and if somebody pushes you on that event, for those of you that are married, if somebody said, you know, what did the church smell like that day? You actually probably can remember. You might not remember what you ate at the reception. I always think that's fascinating. No one ever remembers what they ate. They'll always be like, I don't know, we had this, but I don't ever remember eating it. Right? But there are certain events in your life that you can remember weird details about. And you're like, why do I remember that? Why do I remember what my pillow felt like when I was a kid? You don't have that pillow anymore. If you do, you should get rid of it. It's filled with mites. There's certain, and that's the way the stories are being told, and you have to see them that way. That's to say, God is in the details. It's not that they're trying to write perfect stories. They're narrating these, and as the Holy Spirit is giving Mark the opportunity, he is recording the things that he wants him to know. And a part of the weird details is that these things actually happened. And as two people, you're going to see this, especially with the resurrection, two people who are there will tell the story very differently. This is something that I repeat pretty frequently. This is something you've heard me say this. My brother, right, when he was a rising senior in high school, my brother was in a real serious car accident. Long story, I know I've shared that before, most of you have heard it. But when Mark he went to the local hospital first. He was only at the local hospital for like less than an hour while they were trying to figure out if they could stabilize him to airlift him to Boston, okay? My next door neighbor, Mrs. Taylor, and my mom got in the car and went right to the hospital. They saw Mark being wheeled out from the surgical emergency room to the ambulance. He went by them at a distance in the hospital that's probably like 20 feet, like this. He came out, went that way, went in, and was gone. If you ask Mrs. Taylor about how Mark looked, Mrs. Taylor will say he was coated head to toe in blood. The entire gurney was covered in blood. He was covered head to toe in blood. If you ask my mom the same thing, my mom will say he didn't have any blood on him. This is something that we've done this. This is a long-standing thing in our family. My siblings will tell you the story. Mrs. Taylor was like, oh my gosh, Mark had an open wound, dislocated elbow, a compound fracture, triple compound fracture of his leg, a broken jaw. He had severed his tongue, biting through it. He had punctured lungs. He had a closed brain injury. He hit the front and the back of the car with his brain. Okay, with his skull. He had major cuts on both sides. His best friend who was riding with him, had cut the side of his face and had lifted him out of the car, right? Just given what I said, was there blood on him?
Yes.
Yeah, just a little bit of blood, probably, right? What did my mom see? Her son, right? She saw her son. She didn't see all of the blood. Mrs. Taylor, the next door neighbor, saw all of the blood. And Mark, is my mom wrong? No, she saw her son. That's who was there. And so she remembers certain details, Mrs. Taylor remembers others. Those things could be mutually exclusive, but they're really not. If you understand, if you just look at the details, you go, oh, okay. They're both telling you what was important to them. Mrs. Taylor is telling you the account of the event. My mom is telling you what happened to her son. Right? So for her, Jesus, I'm gonna get to why I said this in a second. Mark being coated in blood isn't that important. The Passion of the Christ The video that I know, a movie from Mel Gibson that I know a lot of you watched, it's now over 20 years old. In that, one of the things a lot of people said coming out of the movie theater was, I never thought of it as that gory. In fact, Pastor Dan will say that. I never thought of it as that gory. And when Pastor Dan told me that, it was like, he had a crown of thorns, he was scourged, right? Which many people died from a scourging. That's why they limited the amount of times you could be whipped. Right? He had been beaten by other soldiers, and he was nailed to a cross. And he's like, I never thought of it as being bloody. Okay. Right? The details that are given are details of the account. It doesn't make them true or false. They're details of the eyewitnesses. So here, this weird detail that the donkey is tied by the door in the street is a detail that on some level Peter found to be interesting, and he relayed to Mark as he's writing. And not only that, I'm not denying the inspiration of the scriptures. The Spirit saw fit to have Mark include that. And one of the simplest reasons is because it is a true story. And true stories are told with weird details. All right? Yeah.
Well, I say, he tells you you'll find a colt tied. So they found it in the street. They didn't go to the street, like 10 colts.
Yeah.
So
that one.
That happened to be the one.
Yes. And you're going to find, again, because this is going to happen also with the room for the Last Supper, a very similar account. It's going to be exactly as Jesus said it would be. Right? You're going to find a colt tied there. And then what happens when they tell him, hey, my colt, where are you going with that? Well, don't worry, the master needs it. We'll bring it back. Hey Dave, can I borrow your keys? No. But Kate needs it, we'll bring it back. Right? Like this, that's what this is. There's a significant investment here. And so there's no reason to think that this is necessarily supernatural. Right? The Bible already has enough miracles, we don't need to add to them. It can be as simple as Jesus knows these people, and when they say the master has need of it, this person's like, oh, okay, you're the people with Jesus. If Jesus wants it, you can use it. Right? Okay. Other details here that are different. There's one really big thing. What about verse 8? I'm going to give you a hint.
No palms.
No palms. I didn't need to give you a hint. See, don't sleep on the guy from Michigan State. See, no palms. It says what? Leafy branches. Leafy branches, which is interesting. No palms in Mark. And when you think about no palms in Mark, that's a key part of the story, right? We know that part of the story. The palms. Yeah, we got to have palms. But it's called Palm Sunday, for heaven's sake. Mark, didn't you get the memo? Right? So it's again, indication just that this is the detail that he's giving is specific. It's specific to him. And as he does, it's not exclusive. The palms would be leafy branches of that tree, right?
Those are the only leafy branches that were left because he killed the fig tree.
He killed the fig tree, yeah. Yeah, we're going to get to that. Yeah, the fig tree. What a weird thing. Yeah. All right, now let's turn to Luke 19. Luke 19. If you want to keep a little note, a little marker, we're going to keep moving back and forth between these. Luke 19. I'm going to ask somebody to read 28 to 44.
And when he had said these things, he went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. When he drew near to Bethphage and Bethany at the mount that is called Olivet, he sent two of the disciples, saying, Go into the village in front of you, where on entering you will find a colt tied, on which no one has ever sat. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, Why are you untying it? You shall say this, The Lord has need of it. So those who were sent away and found it, just as he had told them. And as they were untying the colt, its owners said to them, Why are you untying the colt? And they said, The Lord has need of it. And they brought it to Jesus, and throwing their cloaks on the colt, they set Jesus on it. And as he rode along, they spread their cloaks on the road. As he was drawing near, already on the way down the Mount of Olives, The whole multitude of his disciples began to rejoice and praise God with a loud voice for all the mighty works that they had seen, saying, Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. And some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to him, Teacher, rebuke your disciples. He answered, I tell you, if these were silent, the very stones would cry out. And when he drew near and saw the city, he wept over it, saying, Would that you, even you, had known on this day the things that make for peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. For the days will come upon you when your enemies will set up a barricade around you and surround you and hem you in on every side, and tear you down to the ground, you and your children within you, and they will not leave one stone upon another in you, because you did not know the time of your visitation.
Go to 48.
Oh, 48.
Yep.
And he entered the temple and began to drive out those who sold, saying to them, It is written, My house shall be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. And he was teaching daily in the temple. Chief priests and the scribes and the principal men of the people were seeking to destroy him. But they did not find anything they could do, for all the people were hanging on his words.
All right. I just want to finish the thought there. So what's different? Some real fine details here. No branches. No branches. Yep, no leafy branches, no palms.
And just the disciples were saying,
What?
just the disciples were saying, praise the Lord.
Yeah. The whole multitude of his disciples began to rejoice and praise God. Interesting, in Matthew, it says some of the people did this, which is also true, right? That his disciples are saying it. So it is not a universal crowd. Everybody's not like, yeah, this Jesus guy. There are a bunch who are like, yeah, I don't know, I'm just here for the show, right? I want to see where this goes, right? So here it's clear the disciples are calling out. That's not just the 12, remember. That's all of those who are being taught by the rabbi, okay? What else?
Some of the events in this scene would have happened every year as people came.
We're going to get there. Yep. Some of the events in this scene would have happened every year when the pilgrims came to Jerusalem. Yes. We're going to get there in just a second.
I didn't get that feeling of anger in the temple either. The first account that we read really made me feel like this isn't right. You know, Jesus can't be doing this. It looked like in the thing on there, it just said the guy was trying to hold him back.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I didn't get that in this at all.
Yeah, so much less emphasis on that. What else? Yeah.
I wonder if the fact that each of these gospels were written to a different audience.
Absolutely.
Each of the gospel writers had their own trust.
Yep.
And
Remember, remember what I said? Each of them is a theological book about
Right.
Jesus.
right.
Right? It has an
And
intended
so they're
audience.
picking a
Yes.
description that goes with the crowd
Yes.
that they're addressing.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Was Luke one of the original disciples?
Luke is not. So Luke is not an eyewitness. No, he comes into the picture with the Apostle Paul, right? He comes in later, and he is, so he's introduced to all of this.
So he had to get his information filtered from somebody else?
Correct, all of his information filtered. And he's very clear, he doesn't have one source, he interviews all eyewitnesses. Remember the beginning of it, he writes for most excellent Theophilus, and he says, it seemed fitting for me also to draw up an orderly account of the events that have taken place. And he gives a very clear, he talked to them. He was talking and interviewing the eyewitnesses. Yep.
And that's a really good example of something else, and that is every one of these writers had told this story over and over and over again. But because of this audience answering, want you to hear your story, they write it down.
Yep.
They didn't write it the same way they told somebody else.
Right.
They wrote it down.
And that's also where inspiration comes in, right? Where the Spirit comes in. Yeah. All right, so details. I want to go back to details.
Talks about the Pharisees trying to trick Jesus.
The Pharisees trying to trick Jesus. That's different here. Right? What else?
Jesus wept over Jerusalem.
All right, Jesus is crying. He's weeping over Jerusalem. What else?
They put Jesus on the colt.
They put Jesus on the colt. I wondered if anyone would catch that. In Mark, they put their cloaks on it, and he sat on it. Here, what does it say? They put him on it. So in the video with Matthew here, notice that's what they do. They put him on it. And it's almost silly because it's a colt. And it's this little animal, and they're like giving him a leg up. Right? And Jesus is big. He's just like, I got it. Yeah, it's a different account. They put him on it. Again, I'm trying to add to the story. What is the detail they put him on it? What is that? What indication does that give you? What sense does that give you about this?
He's a king. I mean, they're not making him do anything.
They're placing him on it, right? They're the one. It's like almost like they're forcing the scene, right? Which again is consistent. You think in John, after the feeding of the 5,000, they try to make him king by force, right? So it's almost like that same kind. The people are lifting him up as king, which is consistent again with the Old Testament, where we see the kings. This is happening to them. The people are lifting him up, all right? Again, in Mark, and we could talk about Mark is written to a persecuted people. So here's Jesus, and he's like, this is me, right? I'm on it. He hopped on it. Now again, it says he sat on it. Even if they lift him up and put him on, is he still sitting on it? Yeah, the details are not mutually exclusive. Right? It doesn't say he surfed it, right? It doesn't say he walked next to it, right? It's not something like that, all right? What else do you notice?
It kind of says, it makes you feel like he went directly to the temple.
Directly to the temple. Right. We have a gap there, right? There's a weird sequence. Matthew does not go chronologically. So Matthew does the whole fig tree, right? He does the whole going to the temple. Mark is like, now he looked around, he came back the next day, right? And you can understand, again, I don't want to get into the details of the language too far, but in the details of the language say, all of these events happened, the sequence isn't important, right? What happens is that these all happen. So it's not a matter of, again, it's not a matter of he went out and got lunch, right? That's not what like he did something totally different is my point. No, he did all of these things, and the sequence that they're putting them in is important. Matthew is saying, for example, I want to get the whole fig account. I want that all in one part. I want to make sure you understand the entirety of the story. Whereas it's broken up in Mark. Here's he curses it, they go in, they come back, oh, there's the tree, now it's withered. All right? But they're not mutually exclusive. I want you to look at verse 38. I want to this is a little bit of, you got there?
That was mine.
Go ahead.
That's what I was going to say. They called him king.
And?
He comes in the name of the Lord.
Right. Where do you hear that language? What gospel are we in? Luke.
Oh, Luke, sorry. Yes.
We're in the Gospel of Luke. What do the people cry out? Who comes in the name of the Lord? And what's the next sentence? Where do you hear something like that in the Gospel of Luke?
Luke chapter 2 at the Nativity.
Luke 2 at the Nativity. Remember, we heard those exact words, except then it is peace on earth. And here it is, peace in heaven. All right? But this goodwill, glory in the highest, that Luke uses the same words he used in Luke 2. Right? The same words, glory to God in the highest. The same phrase. Not an accident. Right? The guy who is born, newsflash, same guy. Right? This is what he came to do. All right? And really key thing here, when Jesus descends, when he is incarnated, put on flesh at Christmas, puts on flesh at Christmas, peace on earth. The Messiah is here. He is now going to the cross for what purpose? So we can have peace with God. I'm sorry, I'm doing the guess what I'm thinking thing. Peace in heaven, right? The only way that we have peace in heaven is if Jesus goes to the cross, right? So Luke's going to be really happy that I'm saying masterful, right? He's giving us, this is when he has descended to earth to be our Savior. This is what he came here to do, not just bring some peace. Oh, I feel warm and fuzzy because of the baby, right? No. He has come to bring peace in heaven, which means he's going to die for our sins, right?
the judgment, and he can pay for the judgment.
Exactly. So he can pay for the judgment. Yes. All right. So when we think about the different accounts, it bears, I want to move through this a little bit. We, first of all, again, I'll give you a couple of quick details. The palms and the cries are the Feast of Booths in the Old Testament. Right, the Feast of Booths. So somebody, while you're looking at it, somebody turn to Leviticus 23, 39 to 41. Leviticus 23, 39 to 41. And somebody else look up Psalm 118, 18 to 29. So Leviticus 23, 39 to 41, and then Psalm 118, 19 to 29. So who has Leviticus 23? Who's got that for me? 23, Leviticus 23, 39 to 41. Verses 39. So Leviticus 23, verses 39 to 41.
On the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the produce of the land, you shall celebrate the feast of the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a solemn rest, and on the 8th day shall be a solemn rest. And you shall take on the first day the fruit of splendid trees, branches of palm trees, and boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. You shall celebrate it as a feast to the Lord for 7 days in the year. It is a statute forever throughout your generations. You shall celebrate it on the 7th month, in the 7th month.
So you've got a day of rest and a day of rest. Those are also called what days? Sabbath days. After the Sabbath day, what comes next? This day where you're going to take the leafy branches and the palms, and you're going to wave them, and you're going to rejoice before the Lord. And he says, you will always do this. You get it? Right? The Feast of Booths is a celebration that God had brought them out of Egypt and sustained them that whole time in the desert. Right? The symbolism is really rich. Right? Who's got Psalm 118? Psalm 118. Go ahead, read it. You're going to go 18 to 20 or 19 to 29.
The Lord has disciplined me severely, but he has not given me over to death. Open to me the gates of righteousness, that I may enter through them, and give thanks to the Lord. This is the gate of the Lord. The righteous shall enter through it. I thank you that you have answered me and have become my salvation. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
What's that to 29?
Save us, we pray, O Lord. O Lord, we pray, give us success. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. We bless you from the house of the Lord. The Lord is God, and he made his light to shine upon us. Blind the festal sacrifice with cords up to the horns of the altar. You are my God, and I will give thanks to you. You are my God, I will extol you. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, and his steadfast love endures forever.
All right. What did you hear in there? Right in the middle? Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. What's the sentence before that? Lord, save us. What is it? Right before success? Right before that?
Save us, we pray.
Save us, we pray, O Lord.
Save us, we pray, O Lord. Anyone want to take a stab at what that is in Hebrew? Hosanna. Right? Hosanna. Lord, save us. That's what Hosanna means. All right? Hosh, that's the beginning part. That's Yahweh, the Yahweh God. Sanas, that's save. Shona is to save. And then the last part is Na. And that's the most puzzling part of the word Hosanna. The word Na means please. So the call is actually, Lord, save us, please. If you will. That's what we say, Lord, save us. It's a really peculiar word because we're actually begging, we're imploring the Lord, will you save us, please? Right? Just like the guy who says, if you can, and Jesus says, if I can, and he says, yeah, and he's like, okay, I'll do it. Right? It's the same thing. If you can, if you will, if you please. It's a prayer to God. Really fascinating. The word na, the little word please. This is really obscure. Anyone know the only time that God ever says the word na to a human being? I'm going to give you a hint. It has to do with a sacrifice. Abraham. When Abraham is told to sacrifice his son, he says, take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and sacrifice him now. Please. Hosanna. Right? The connection is really important. It's this sense of, if you will, and Abraham's like, I will, and God's like, it is not actually in your capability to do what I'm asking you to do. Right? And he takes it away. It's a really cool connection. So the word Hosanna is really important. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Psalm 118, generations before Jesus comes in. These have been the words of the pilgrims as they ascend into Jerusalem. This is why they do all the stuff they do, because they're anticipating the day when the Messiah will come. And so it's common for them to say Hosanna. It's common for them to say to each other, blessed are those who come in the name of the Lord. It's common for them to say, we await the day when the one from the Lord will come and save us. Right? So all really important, really rich imagery that's happening as they go in. Now, one other thing that we need to see is a sidebar here now. All right, we're going to take a little bit of a tangent into history. This is not the first person who has done what Jesus is doing. Some of you have heard, you've been around a while, you've heard of Antiochus Epiphanes, or Antiochus IV. Antiochus IV was himself a Seleucid. He was one of the Greeks who ruled Egypt and ruled the region. He is an absolute, the worst type of despot you can imagine. All right? In fact, his own historians, the Greek historians, wrote about him and said that he was ruthless, and that nobody could tolerate him because he was so ruthless. And when he took over Jerusalem, when he destroyed Jerusalem, he came in and did everything he could to defile it. One of the things that he did was he took all of the prophecies that he could find and he tried to fulfill them in himself. So his name is Antiochus IV. He gave himself the title Antiochus Epiphanes. So remember Epiphany, the Epiphany season that we have after Christmas? Do you remember what the word Epiphany means? Revealed. So he called himself the revealed God. I'm Antiochus the revealed. Right? He told everybody this is what he had stamped on his coins. Here you go. We still have these coins. They still exist. He had stamped on his coins the revealed God. That's what he called himself. Right? Nice guy. And then after he conquered Egypt again, he actually called himself the victor. So he was the great victor, the great revealer. That's how he referred to himself. That's actually an image of him. There are lots of images of him that exist because he had everything he could marked with his image. Right? Now, what's interesting about him, I want to read this. This is from Greek historians. Okay? So these are people who otherwise should be friendly. Now, I'm going to fast forward because it's going to read back. Right? So this is his great-great-grandson. This is Antiochus VII, right? Who was actually called the benefactor. That was his nickname. So he got his lineage got better. Okay, it's the people after him. So King Antiochus VII, in 134 BC, besieged Jerusalem. The Jews withstood the siege for some time, but when all the provisions were used up, they were forced to send ambassadors to him to seek terms for a truce. This was written about 105 BC, by the way. All right, what I'm reading right now. Many of his friends urged him to storm the city and to root out the whole nation of the Jews, for they only of all people hated to mix with any other nations and treated them all as enemies. They suggested to him that the ancestors of the Jews were driven out of Egypt as impious and hateful to the gods, for seeing their bodies were infected with white marks and leprosy. By the way, what? Yeah, what happened? What's being reported here for us? Yeah, why were there white marks and leprosy, boils on the people? Why? The plagues. Right? This is a secular account of what happened in Egypt. So when you hear people say, "Oh, there's no evidence," what happened? Yeah, actually, 105 BC, a Greek historian is writing about what happened to the people in Egypt. Right? So listen. So keep going. So he said, by way of expiation or sacrifice, the Egyptians gathered them all together and expelled them out of their country as profane and wicked wretches. Interesting, right? After they were thus expelled, they settled around Jerusalem and were afterwards united in one nation called the nation of the Jews. But their hatred of all other men descended with their blood to their posterity. And therefore they made strange laws, and quite different from other people. They will never eat nor drink with any of other nations, or wish them any prosperity. His friends reminded him that Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, after subduing the Jews, entered into the temple of God, into which none was allowed to enter by their law except the priest. When they found in there the image of a man with a long beard, carved in stone and sitting upon a donkey, he took it to be Moses, who built Jerusalem and built the nation together and brought the nation together, and who established by law all their wicked customs and practices, abounding in hatred and enmity to all other men. Antiochus, therefore, abhorring their antagonism to all other people, tried his utmost to abolish their laws. To that end, he sacrificed a great swine at the image of Moses, and at the altar of God that stood in the outward court, and sprinkled them with the blood of the sacrifice of the swine. He commanded likewise that the books, by which they were taught to hate all of the nations, should be sprinkled with the broth made from the swine's flesh. And he put out the lamp, called by them immortal, which burns continually in the temple. Lastly, he forced the high priest and the other Jews to eat swine's flesh. Right? So again, I'm not suggesting that the details are all right. Like, I'm not suggesting that the Israelite people, the Jewish people, are bad like they're saying. What's happening here is their enemy is writing about them and saying these things, and then admitting that generations before their king had done all of these things. You know, it gives the justification for it, right? But what's that written? 105 BC.
Where?
In Greece. And so in the writing of all of this, he's saying this is what Antiochus Epiphanes did. He marched into the temple. He marched in a big procession, went into the temple and defiled it. He slaughtered a pig. A pig is an unclean animal, in case you don't remember that. An unclean animal, sprinkled the blood on the altar and on the image of Moses, and then took that swine and boiled it, took the broth and put it all over the books, all over the Bible, right? And then forced the high priests to be defiled by eating this animal, right? Nice guy. So when Jesus does this, when Jesus rides in, you understand, that's all during the Maccabees period, if you're wondering when that is. And by the way, you also heard he put out the immortal light. What happens? What story do you know? What happens? Hanukkah, right? When the light was out and they didn't have enough oil to keep the light going, and the light lasted for 8 days, miraculously, right? By the way, we have no problem with the Maccabees. We have no problem with the intertestamental books. We just don't believe they're Bible. We believe they're true history, right? So all of this stuff that happens, this is them telling the account. This is them saying, this is what happened back then, right? So the people of the day know these stories. They know that the temple was defiled by Antiochus Epiphanes. They know that there have been sieges. They know all of the things that are possible. Now Rome has driven that out, and now Rome is the conqueror. And so now here comes Jesus, and he's coming in. He doesn't come in with the same pomp and circumstance of an Antiochus Epiphanes, where I'm going to defile. Instead, he comes in, and he is riding this colt, and he is saying, I'm one who is coming in weeping over Jerusalem. Would that you would know what brings you peace. Right? He's a different type. This is a different type of entrance. So a lot of times we portray this whole thing as like a big celebration. And it is. There's a whole nationalistic fervor that's going on. But actually, as it's coming in, this is a very, very complicated scene, which helps understand or explain why the Sanhedrin is upset, why the Romans are upset, why the disciples are confused, why the people are disturbed, all of Jerusalem is disturbed. There's a lot of stuff going on here, right? And it also helps us to understand why the whole scene itself is so muddied and confused. Who's on Jesus' side and who's not? Because one of his own members is clearly not. And some of the Pharisees clearly are. And so what's going on? All of this is, so my point in telling you all this is to say, it's a very complicated scene. And it's made even more complicated by the fact that a city that's normally 50,000 people is actually more like 200,000 people at this point. So you have pilgrims everywhere, and all of these people doing the things that the pilgrims are doing. And now Jesus, what does he do? He goes into the temple and he seeks to undefile the temple. Right? So again, put in your mind, I know the story of Antiochus Epiphanes. It's been told to me. This guy came and defiled the temple. Now here comes Jesus, and he's casting out the money changers. And he says, no, zeal for your house will consume me. Purify this place. It's a very different story, but the actions seem similar, don't they? Right? Again, complicated scene. We're going to see throughout the entirety of the Holy Week that it's a complicated scene. It's not simple. It's not like you learned when you were growing up with the little felt images that you put up. There's Jesus with the bread and the wine. That's over. Then Jesus at the cross. It's sad. Then Jesus is alive. Yay! Right? There's a lot that's going on here. Right? And I believe the more we know, the more those events become meaningful. All right? Yeah.
The marketplace was defiled for a long time. This is the second time he turned tables and was angry about it. Wasn't the first time right after the changing of wine, the beginning of his ministry?
Correct. In the Gospel of John only.
Okay, so they didn't listen the first time. It went back to the way it was. I guess, how come they didn't listen?
So there's a definite question. Again, remember what I said before, is that the Gospels are not necessarily chronological. They're not necessarily linear. So there's always been a debate, and you can read both sides of this issue, and lots of ink has been spilled about whether it is one event that is being separated for theological purposes, or whether it actually happens at the beginning and the end of his ministry. Right? There are some details that are slightly different, but most of the details are the same. One of the most troubling parts is that in the Gospel of John, the only one who says this, he fashions a whip to drive people out. Right? And it's a very, very calculating thing. Because it says he made the whip. It's not like he found it. It was like, oh, I'll just use this. Right? He made it. And so the question is, why did he have to do it twice if he did it twice? And the answer would be, because there's a lot of money in it. Right? There's a lot of money in doing what they were doing. It's looking at the scene and going, this is a complicated scene. Right? And it's complicated in all aspects.
That's one thing that they showed on the Chosen, where some of the disciples, like Peter, were worried that why is Christ doing this? Because he's going to really upset the Pharisees, and it's going to. I think they were worried he was going to be crucified, essentially, but they didn't want to admit it.
Yes. And the only thing I'm going to add to that is, they didn't think remember, there's no reason. I'm going to totally eat these words in just a second. There's no reason that they would suspect that Jesus would be crucified. How did they think he would die? He would be stoned. Why? That's the Jewish way of execution. All right? Now, the only reason why they should suspect him to be crucified was what? He had told them 3 times that he was going to be crucified. But think of how confusing that is. All right? Every time I preach on take up your cross and follow me, I remind you that he has not been crucified yet. So what does that mean to the people? When he's talking to them, he's like, whoever comes after me must take up his cross and follow me. Wow, I guess we're going to do something to get Rome mad at us, to kill us. All right? And in this instance, he has told them I'm going to be crucified, but it's the Pharisees who are angry. So the people, if he's going to die, he's going to be stoned to death. And he keeps telling them, no, I'm going to be crucified. What? This doesn't make any sense. And there's a certain foreshadowing here that now says, at some point, the leaders of the Jews, the Sanhedrin, and the Roman rulers are going to become partners. And it ain't going to be pretty. All right? What's that? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Right? Exactly. So this is a painting. I know we have about 10 minutes left. So this is a painting. A woman named Linda Richardson paints this. And this is what she says. In this painting, we see Jesus weeping. And she painted it this way. Is he weeping for us, or is he weeping with us? There's an unknown person in this painting who Jesus clasps in his arms. It might be you he holds as he weeps over your pain and your suffering. The pain and suffering that you feel that might be carrying something that you can hardly bear. Or perhaps it's you who is holding Jesus, comforting God as he wept for the refusals of his grace, wept for a world weary with its weeping, while her worst nightmares stalked the light of day. So she's painting this, her whole mentality is, who's holding whom and why is Jesus crying? But the effect of Jesus crying is that he's crying over sin. Whether it's the burden that you carry, any one of us carries, or the burden that God is carrying. Now let's go back to the cursing of the fig tree, right? That's also the event that's happening right here. And the cursing of the fig tree is not just Jesus flying off the handle. Sorry, keep looking, it's actually there. It's not just Jesus flying off the handle. The cursing of the fig tree is explained pretty easily if you know the book of Revelation. So when Jesus goes, he sees the fig tree in leaf. It's not supposed to be bearing fruit. Now let's go to the garden. And when the garden is created, are there seasons for the fruit? No, there are no seasons for the fruit. Let's go to the new creation in Revelation, to the paradise we will all experience, and the tree bears fruit in every season. That's what trees were designed to do. This is much the same as saying, you and I were not designed to die. We were designed to live. Right? The fig tree is designed to bear fruit in all seasons. So when Jesus goes to the tree and it doesn't bear fruit, he's not dumb. He doesn't go, why isn't the fig tree, it's middle of winter, right? It's 12 degrees outside. Why isn't there an apple on this apple tree? Right? He knows perfectly well why there's not fruit on the tree. And the cursing of the fig tree is the same as this. It's the anger over the fact that the world is not as it's supposed to be. The tree should have borne fruit for a hungry person. Right? Now again, some people will I'm going to keep going, you're the one tonight, Chuck. That people will take this all sorts of ways where we want to make this a metaphor for some. People are supposed to bear fruit all the time. And if believers, if you don't bear fruit, then you're going to be cut off. Okay, Jesus teaches about that elsewhere. You don't have to read this into this text, right? You can simply look at it as it is and you can understand what's happening. Nothing is right, and he has come to make it right. In order to make it right, it's going to take this, let's say, heroic act, right, where he dies for all of it. Think it forward in Romans, all of creation waits in eager expectation for the sons of God to be revealed. Right? It's groaning as in the pains of childbirth. This is Romans 8. It's groaning as in the pains of childbirth for the sons of God to be revealed. It's yearning for the day when all is made new. That's what Jesus is demonstrating with the cursing of the fig tree. So it's not that he's surprised or anything like that. It's not that he's flying off the handle. It's that he is demonstrating the world is broken and I'm tired of it. Right? I'm sick of the world being broken and I'm coming to do something about it. I think it would have been really cool. I'm going to tell God this. When I get to paradise, it would have been really cool if after the resurrection they went back to the tree and it was alive. That would have been, cinematic, right? Like Hollywood, that would have been awesome. Instead, we're going to see this. Instead, what comes back to life? Yes, I'm sorry. I should have taken that. When Jesus comes back to life, what else comes back to life? Yeah, whoever said it. The tombs of many holy people broke open and they went into the city. Like, what? Like the resurrection power just spilled over a little bit, like God's like, it takes this much resurrection power to raise Jesus. I turned it up just a little bit too far. It's also like Moses was alive for just a minute. Like, hey, what's up, guys? Anybody have a fig? Right? And then they could take it off to the fig tree. The fig tree could have been alive. And the disciples would have been really impressed. See, let me write the script. I got this.
Which gospel is that in?
The Gospel of Scott. Right. Yes. The theology, right. We came alive with Jesus. And then, so again, the cursing of the fig tree is an important part of the story. And it's weird because it's actually in all the Gospels. Remember, the Lord's Supper is not in all 4 Gospels. The cursing of the fig tree is. Isn't that weird? Right? And there are reasons. I'm not I'm not ignorant. I'm a little bit ignorant, not that ignorant.
There is one other lovely aspect of that picture, and is that fact, if that is, he's holding someone, and that someone is holding him in thanksgiving
Mm.
for all the suffering he did.
Right? So the holding back, you said, if that person is holding back in thanksgiving for all the suffering that he will endure. Right? Yeah. Let's see if we can make this one.
And Jesus resolutely took the road for Jerusalem.
Things you noticed? Yes, Jesus is from England. He's very proper. Yes. He's what?
He's also a man.
He's a different Jesus, yeah. Very sanitized. He's like very, very small.
Happy music.
Yeah, happy music. Like, and then like they confront him and like he confronts back and like then he smiles again. Don't worry, I still. They give him a leg up. Yep, they help him get up. Again, different depiction, different generation. That was from the 70s. I actually was trying to play the Godspell one. So you remember you've seen Godspell. Some of you have seen. I'm sorry, I meant Jesus Christ Superstar. Where they take the word Hosanna and mash the word Hosanna. Hosanna, He-Zanna. Santa, Santa. Like, hey, Santa, hey, Santa, Hosanna, hey, Santa. Yeah. And then it's like, whoa, hey, JC. Yeah. Yeah.
We could do it if you.
Yeah, really. Okay, so as we wrap up for tonight, understand Palm Sunday moves into Monday. Again, we talked a lot about the events of Monday, the cursing of the fig tree, the cleansing of the temple. You should hear in the cleansing of the temple, not only zeal for your house will consume me, but you should hear, like Hosea 6, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, an acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. When we look at the cleansing of the temple, we can say God instructed them to do this. Yes, he did. He did not instruct them to do it this way. Right? And Hosea 6 is the one that rules the day. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. An acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. Your hearts are far from me. The money changers, you're trying to make money off the people who are coming, who are righteous. It's the same kind of thing that's happening. There's extortion that's happening. Jesus isn't against the temple. And he's not even against all of the temple leaders. Remember that some of them are with Jesus. He's against those who are manipulating the pilgrims, and they're manipulating them to the point where they're preying on their righteousness. If you want to be righteous, this is the only way for you to do it. Right? Much the way Luther said, if the Pope can really grant salvation, why doesn't he do it for free? Right? It's the same way. If you are really trying to help pilgrims be righteous, then why are you trying to make money off them? Right? So it's not just that there's an exchange that's happening, it's that they're manipulating people and they're taking advantage of their righteousness. That's what he gets upset about. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. He wants the true heart of the worshiper. Which again, Suzanne, to wrap that in there too, that's why some of the people who are there are like, we're still with you, right? You're my Messiah. You're my person, right? And the kids even cry out.